Hello, hello. Thank you for joining. I can see a couple people trickling in. We'll give it a few minutes, maybe till 1:05, and then I'll start. So just a couple minutes for a few more people to join in. Thank you all for joining early. Just giving it a couple minutes for more people to join, but we'll start in just 2 minutes. Okay, seems like we have quite a few people online, so I guess we can get started. Thank you all for joining today's Thinking Big session. Thinking Big is run by Endeavor, and it's an Ask Me Anything series where we interview entrepreneurs, operators, and investors who are, executing on wildly ambitious goals in the markets. My name is Bode Abifarin. I am going to be hosting/moderating this session. I'm a senior associate at Endeavor. For those of you who don't know Endeavor, Endeavor is a mission-driven organization that supports high-impact entrepreneurs in emerging markets. So we're founded over 20 years ago in Latin America, and today we support more than 2,000 entrepreneurs in more than 35 markets, including countries in Latin America, Africa, Southeast Asia, Europe, the Middle East, and some cities in the US. We launched in Nigeria in 2018 and currently work with 16 entrepreneurs who are leading 10 companies, including Paga, Migo, Health Plus, Cover 360, Keystar Power, and relevant for today's session, including Flutterwave. So today we have an extra special guest with us. We have Bode. Bode is the COO of Flutterwave, and before joining Flutterwave, she was a management consultant at KPMG. She joined Flutterwave in 2016, and since she joined, Flutterwave has expanded into multiple African countries, has announced more than $45 million in capital raise. So as you can imagine, Bode has been quite busy since she joined Flutterwave. Thank you for joining us today, Bode. Yeah. So I guess
All right, thank you.
Yeah, so we'll just start by having Bode, just introduce yourself, speak a little bit about your career before Flutterwave, and then just talk about the work you do with Flutterwave today.
All right, thank you, Derry. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Bode Abifarin, Chief Operating Officer at Flutterwave. Okay, so before I joined Flutterwave, I joined Flutterwave October 2018, Derry, not 2016. Yeah, so yes, so I started my career with KPMG. So when I joined KPMG, I was one of those people that was like, okay, let me get some consulting experience, spend 3, 4, 5 years, and then leave to go for my master's and all of that. But I found I ended up spending about 15 years at KPMG. So I started my career in KPMG. So when you get into KPMG, you're in the pool, so you get to do quite a number of things. So I was focused on process analysis, finance function transformation. I did a lot of that in my first, second, third year. Then by the time I was getting into my 4th year, I started doing a lot of strategy. So strategy just means you have an organization, they want to define their 5-year strategy plan. So I was part of the team that helped to do that. But I was focused on the financial services industry. So I was doing this for banks, insurance, mortgages, financial services industry clients in general. So I continue to do this, focusing mainly on the banks really and insurance companies. And then I now joined the customer advisory. So it was at a point, I started to lead the customer advisory. Hello, can you hear me, Darren?
Yes, I can. Sure. I can hear you.
Hello?
Yes, I can hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So I started leading the customer advisory space. So customer advisory, strategizing in terms of coming up with how to give a good customer experience for banks as well. The good thing about customer advisory is also for most organizations, you start with the customer and work backwards. So as you're thinking about how the customer experiences the organization, you're looking at things across the strategy, the process, the people. So it cuts across everything. So that was what I was doing in KPMG before I made a move to Flutterwave in 2018. Yeah, so that's the background, Darren.
Yeah, no, thanks for providing that background. For everyone who's attending, if you have any questions, you can put them in the Q&A box. And during the session, I'll just take a couple questions from the Q&A box and ask them. But yeah, thank you for the background. So, most people who join consulting like you described want to maybe spend a couple years, go for business school and then leave. And I guess people who spend much longer typically just tend to stay almost their entire career in consulting. So I'm curious about the decision, after 15 years to leave the relative comfort / stability of KPMG to then join, a small, fast-growing startup that has all these big, exciting plans.
Okay. All right. Let me add a little more color too, because I know what you said in terms of, you join KPMG, spend 3 or 4 years, then go to Watson, go to Harvard, and then you're now in the US, working for big companies and all. I think for me, one of the beauty about working in KPMG then was the way we solved people's problems. In my 3rd year, we did a project for an insurance company. The company was actually about to die off and be sold off and all of that, but they had, people issues, simple things as, automating a few things in their insurance process for their claims process, simple things about staff needing a staff boss, so many things that were simple, they looked simple, and we're able to, do sessions, help them pull all of that together. And then there was a day I was just, driving across I am on the road of that insurance company, and I saw, like 3 or 4 staff buses outside. I saw the place was painted. I walked in, everybody was looking vibrant. So it was that beauty of, you start a project, there was a challenge, you finish the project, and then you're able to move to somewhere else. So you build that relationship with the clients. You see where they started from point A, how you've been able to take them to point B. Those sorts of things, just bring the excitement. So the beginning, the closure, and all of that. And then I also found out that, you can, as I grew in my career, it didn't stop me from doing my master's. So at a point, I actually did my executive master's. I did with Imperial College in London. So I was able to accomplish that as well. So it was just the beauty of solving challenges, helping clients really understand what the pain points is, helping them grow, and helping them to achieve, their objectives and revenue and all of that, that really kept me. And before I could open my eyes, I had spent 15 years. So, so by the time my 15th year, by the time I was leaving, I was already an associate director. To be honest with you, my goal was to become a partner at KPMG. I wanted a partnership, and I was doing everything, to make sure that, I achieved that target. But in 2017, one of my friends introduced me to GB. That's Beolubenga Agbola, the CEO of Flutterwave. So we had he just said, I'd like to speak with Bode. And I think that was just a year after Flutterwave started. So Flutterwave started in 2016, but operations really started in 2017. So I met him maybe mid-2017 or so. So in that 2017, we started having conversations, just saying this is what he wanted to do and all of that. So I just saw it as, okay, so on weekends, over phone calls, we'll just talk. He would tell me these are the things. But before that, I'd actually met him in one of the projects, in one of the companies he was working with, just casually, we talked to clients and all of that, but it was very, very quick. And so after I was properly introduced, we started having conversations from that 2017. It wasn't in my mind. I just continued doing what I was doing and all of that. But there were a few things that struck me. So the first thing is, he described the problem he was trying to solve in terms of Africa. So we're saying payments in Africa is fragmented. Today, if you go to in Europe, UK, they have a fairly uniform way of payments, Master, Visa, everything works. But if you come to Africa, East Africa, M-Pesa, Nigeria alone, we have cards, Airtel, Tigo, mobile money, it's everywhere. So when he started to describe the kind of infrastructure he was building to take on the challenge so that any business anywhere can participate in the global market space. So Darren, you can start your business. You don't have to think about anything as long as you're online, whatever form your merchant wants to pay you in. Describing the infrastructure of taking on, because there'll be legal, there'll be regulatory, a lot of things, to provide that platform. And you're able to, bring your business to the global market space and participate, and everybody sees your business. Payment is no longer a problem. I was like, wow, interesting. So as time went on, it just became, so we'll talk about solutions, how to do that, it just became like, okay, but what are you doing? It's going to be hard, it's not going to be easy, but I think we can, work together and solve this sort of challenge. So after I checked a few things, forward-looking, understanding of the payments industry, sometimes I even call him a prophet because he knows, he really understands what the industry is about. Passionate about people, passionate about building a great culture. I just thought it ticked all the boxes for me. And if we're able to achieve that and allow people to be able to, e-commerce and all of that to thrive, I saw it as a good challenge. The other key thing that also ticked the box for me was the beauty of engineering. So it can send me like a link and say, but it tests this, you test it and it actually works. You put in your card details, it works. Even if there's an issue, the engineers will put heads together and in the morning, everything is working. It felt like magic, like, wow, we're creating and building, something new. So that also was like a box ticker for me. And yeah, so I just found myself, yeah, more interested and here.
Yeah. No, that's absolutely fascinating, and I think I've experienced GB, speaking about the problem he's trying to solve, and it's very convincing, and it's very, very eloquently put. So talk to me about, joining Flutterwave, and it's completely different environment. What did your early days in Flutterwave look like? What kinds of projects and roles, or what kinds of hats were you putting on, and how was the experience?
Okay. To be honest, the early days were a bit a bit challenging and flurry because in KPMG there was structure. Do you get? So as a director, I could work with managers, senior manager. Everybody knew what they had to do. Now, when you come to this side, you have it's a different terrain. So you have engineers. So you can imagine trying to tell engineers that everybody must resume at 8 o'clock. Do you get? And you think that is a good idea. You're trying to get your people to be productive, but some of these engineers didn't sleep. They were pushing codes overnight, and one thing as well that, GB is very big on is we're building something that we don't know, nobody has ever built before. There are other companies, but, we're building a company that is fresh, that is new. So everything, so there's no template you can't bring. So I had to do a lot of unlearning, it can't be, but it's not going to work here. Let's think about it and think about what we're trying to achieve and how it's going to work. So there was a lot of unlearning that I had to do in terms of what we're trying to build. So early days, I'll tell you that my function or my to-do list, came from in terms of Bode. These are the things that we need to focus on. So, I was doing, so there was compliance, onboarding, I was doing finance, overseeing the customer experience team, because we're trying to build the structure, recruit the people, either through referrals. We did a lot of, we did our internship program for the customer experience, and a lot of our engineering team, developers as well. So just pulling all of that together, at the initial stage, so just ensuring that everything was being kept together and we're able to run and beginning to understand the whole, how everything fits into each other. So coming from, is it the products, where is engineering, operations, settlement, just beginning to piece everything together one after the other was a lot of what I was doing in the early days, right? Yeah.
Cool, great. No, and I guess that makes a lot of sense. You come in and while you want to bring some structure, you understand that it's a different environment, and so there has to be a different way about thinking about things. But surely, you still have to bring some structure, even if it's not the one you had at KPMG. So it would be interesting if you just talk to me about, because I know many people on the line work for startups, operate in startups, run startups. And it will be interesting to see how you manage to go about setting, some structures in place that even if they are not KPMG structures or they are not anyone else's structures, they are uniquely Flutterwave, and they enabled you guys to continue to execute while, continue to execute while, understanding that things need to be done in a certain manner.
Okay, all right, thank you. So I think in Flutterwave, one of the things that we always tell ourselves is that our people are our greatest assets. So like, I'm just one of the leaders. We have so many leaders. We don't do hierarchy. We run a very flat structure. So as time went on, we started recruiting into key positions. So we have a Chief Global Compliance Officer, Mo. He sits in the UK office, for instance, and he also is an ex-JP Morgan person. So we started having a lot of people from structure to come in to help build all of these structures. So we have a lot of great leaders leading a lot of the units. So we have a global head of people. She's also ex Ernst & Young. We have head of global operations, Awa. She sits in Chicago. We have a head of global expansion and partnerships. So we have a lot of leaders, leading a lot of the units, all their experience to on board. So one of the things that we set out to do, and I think what we called our must-have kits was, let's have a code of conduct in terms of, because in the end, you're working with people. So what is our code of conduct? Who are we about in Flutterwave? Another key thing is also defining our culture and our core values. I remember our core values took us about maybe almost 4 to 6 months because we didn't want to rush it. We wanted, so it was all of us coming together, one after the other. So if you ask a lot of the people that started, they can tell you that thing from their heart because it was a process where we pieced all of that together. Early this year as well, we came up with our mission statement, simplifying payments for endless possibilities as well. So one of the things in our must-have kits as well is that you must have a rallying cry because you can't scale ambiguity. So people must be able to understand exactly what we're after so that every time we do a new product, every time we make decisions, every time we want to go in any certain way or introduce a new payment plan, people know that the end goal is that we want to simplify payments for endless possibilities for our merchants, for our stakeholders, for our customers, in everything that we do. So it's a rallying cry that as a startup you must have because it always takes you back, even when you want to go off. Everybody will keep reminding ourselves that, yes, we're simplifying payments for endless possibilities. I think those are some of the things that helped. Then the other thing is also documentation. Because, a lot of startups, where when people leave, they're like, he has left. Where's all the knowledge? So in terms of just document. So documentation also helps you to understand how different pieces of the work move. So if I take an example, for instance, if you take operations, so in operations, if you say settlement operations, how does the money come in? What are the banks? What are the partners? Who are the providers? As you're documenting, you see all the dependencies and everybody just sort of comes together and you're able to see where the flows are. And so that when new people come on board, as you scale and as you add more people, there's a point of reference because things change so very quickly in startups. That's another thing that I've learned. But the documentation gives you a frame of reference. People are able to understand what you're doing, and it's across for finance, even engineers, their codes, you have to document it so that somebody else can come, take that over and we can understand what has been done. And then because we're also regulated as well, we're regulated by CBN. You know how CBN is, they're very big on documentation. You need to have all the documentation that you require. So writing all of that down and ensuring that everybody understands what it's about is also very critical. I think those are the key things. And then just having passionate people, a group of passionate people that that are clear about the goal and want to achieve the same thing. And I think the last thing in that must-have kit is communication. I think we've learned that very clearly. So communicating internally, very key. People must understand. So, it's not good for staff to hear about what is happening from the outside. Let's all understand because staff are also telling their friends, have you tried our product? So that if anything goes wrong, they also know. Then communicating with our merchants, communicating with our customers, and all our stakeholders.
Yeah. No, these are very good, and I'm just personally taking notes. So I have a couple questions that have come in around, and I'm going to merge two of them. So one, asks about if someone is trying to learn how to, implement operational structures and processes in a tech startup, do you have any material you can recommend? And then the other person is asking, what 3 books have shaped your career? And, how do you implement what you've learned from these books in and I think you can be very flexible. Books, podcasts, articles, any kind of material. Just if someone is trying to do some of the things you've done or to learn some of the things you've learned, where can they go?
Okay, so thank you. I'll answer the first question. I think in terms of documentation, I'll just say maybe, not even maybe, my consulting background helped. But documentation is, you just have to put your mind to it and dedicate time to make sure that things are documented. When you come together, maybe for quick mind sharing, always have somebody that is documenting everything that you're saying. So just the whole habit of taking notes, sharing minutes of meetings. In fact, at a point we're saying before you have a meeting, you have to schedule it. You have to say what the objective of the meeting was, because we started finding out that we're having so many meetings. So, that also helped. But, in a startup as well, because of agility, we can all just get together in seconds, on Slack, and we're like, let's get on Zoom, let's make a decision and all of that. Then in your team as well. So we have a team called project management. So we have someone in that team that is very good with documentation as well. So she helps to pull all the documentation together. But it's the team leads that still, because you just have to come up with a template. What's the number one thing you do? What's the second thing you do? What's the third thing you do? What's the fourth thing you do? And all of that. I also encourage a lot of documentation, journey mapping, because at KPMG I did a lot of that as well. So we just we're there and we're already drawing the boxes that this is what we need to do. So we're very big on documentation. You don't need to be perfect or have a skill. You can just get templates available and just say, this is the first thing we do, this is the second thing we do, these are the handoffs, this is the report that comes out of this is who we give the report to, this is how frequently we generate this report. So all of those things, it's a habit, and you find out that if you insist on it, and then it becomes a habit, and people will be like, have you documented? Where can I read it? Is there any document? And all of that. So those are some of the key things that help. Now, in terms of books that I've read, Built to Last. I read that. I listen to a lot of podcasts from different people. There's this a lady, Badass Boss. She was in Netflix. She's in Netflix now. I followed her journey as well. But beyond that, I am a bit weird. So people like Serena Williams, inspire me. People like, I know a lot of people that know me on this call may laugh, but I'm a big fan of Beyonce as well. Not maybe her music, but just the dedication that she puts to her work. She's like behind, but in front. Do you get? She puts in a lot of time for. So I watch a lot of her clips on her biography and all of that as well. Then there are other people, a lot of people that I talk to and learn from. So when I was at KPMG, I had BC, I had Ngozi, I had a lot of people that I looked up to and, had conversations with as well. So I listen to a lot of podcasts, here and there. I read a lot of Times, news. I'm always on top, and I also try to be well-rounded in terms of, how I learn. And I think one thing that GB also did for me is when I joined Flutterwave, or even before I joined, it's just the way he breaks down everything, so in the simplicity of it. And we believe in the fact that you can't lead what you don't know. So for instance, if we have a product like a Flutterwave for Business, if there's an issue, I'm on my phone, I'm testing it, we get to the details of things. If somebody says something is not working, we're testing it. That was the way, he sort of trained and helped me to really understand payments and a lot of the things that we did. And then I attended a number of accelerator programs. I attended a lot of programs as well that exposed me to how to deal with investors. Yeah, so that has also been helpful.
Yeah, no, thanks. There's a lot of great stuff to pick out from what you've said, just around culture, mission, communicating, documentation, building habits. But the one thing I picked on is just, watch Beyonce. Because
no, I didn't say watch Beyonce. But honestly, if you go to YouTube and watch some of the ways she I may not watch, whatever, I may not even know the title of the songs, but in terms of the dedication and passion, the attention to detail, she wants to be the executive producer, she puts in the time, so you can't lead people that you don't understand what, and you know, everything has changed. It's not like back then where you get an instruction from a leader. People will challenge you, they will ask you, and these are people that know what is up. So yeah.
But definitely, I was only half kidding. I do think, you know, if you look at people like Beyonce, if you look at people like Serena Williams, the amount of dedication and, you know, the standard they set. Remember when Beyonce released a surprise album, and the level of work it took to build, you know, to produce an album of that quality without it leaking, without anybody, you know, speaking to the media, and you did all the songs, she did all the video. It took a level of dedication. So I completely agree. That's really great. And you know, there are a couple things. Actually, there's one thing that happened, I think it was last year, which I was really, really impressed with how quick it all came together. And this was when there were layoffs at Angela, which I imagine many people, you know when that happened. And very quickly, Flutterwave set up a developer fair, which, you know, I don't have the numbers. I was there. And there were quite a number of companies. There were about maybe 20 companies or more. And there were, you know, I can imagine at least 100 developers because there were just so many. And they were, you know, they were paired with these companies. They did interviews. I imagine people were recruited. And it all just came about in a few days. You know, GB emailed me and said, "Oh, we're trying to do this thing. Can you get some companies?" And that was maybe on a Thursday. And by Saturday, it was all put together. And I remember coming in and everybody was looking to Bode. "Hello, Bode, what do we do?" And you were just, you know, controlling the entire room and managing everything. But, you know, I'd like to know how something like that comes about. And how you execute something like that very quickly.
Okay. All right. So like like I always say, or GB always says that, but I'm like a group head in a bank. Do you understand? So I may be CEO, but you know, we're just a very small company. So I remember that idea came from one of our leaders, and you know, that's also the way idea flows. You can have an idea and send a message to GB, to IO, to it's, you know, just to send the idea. So we got the idea. I think we're even on our way for a meeting. Myself, IO, and GB, and then, you know, the idea came. And the next thing was like, yeah, let's go for it. And we organized the team. We started making calls to some of our contacts across, you know, the people that wanted to exhibit. We drew up a list and everybody just really got to work. We have a great marketing team. You know, they put together the articles and it was out there. We did the communication. And, you know, it's I think it's one of the things I like about startups and, you know, just creating and building. I know I'm using the word create and build a lot, but I've seen a lot of creating and building, you know, because sometimes in my consulting life, you know, we used to say those things like agility, you know, fail forward, fail fast. I see a lot of that because I remember one product that we came up with, you know, that there was a wristband thing. You know, we came up with it, we went to the beach, we tested it out, you know, we came back, we're saying what were the lessons. So that's how quickly, you know, you want to test something because things move very fast. And if you don't do it, you know, you'll be wondering, you know, what did I do? And you can do it, find where the gaps are and come back and, you know, say, this is how we want to move forward. So that was how we just, you know, did it quickly. It was still fresh. The news was still very fresh when we made that decision. So decision making is okay. Let's you know, let's do it. You know, why not? And we thought about it, and then we came up with like a checklist of all the things that we required, and everybody just set to work, like team efforts in executing that as well. So when we finished as well, we sent, you know, feedback forms to learn. In fact, we wanted to do another one this year, if not for COVID. Just before the COVID, you know, the team had, everything was already set in terms of even doing it bigger and better and all of that. So we even wanted to turn that to a yearly event as well. And also documenting how the whole process went the last time also helped to quickly get that on the road.
Documentation again. But you should consider doing it this year, but doing it virtual, because I imagine, you know, that there'll be quite some demand for something.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
But while you like to pretend like Flutterwave is still, you know, a small a small startup, it's becoming increasingly clear that the company is actually quite important in the Nigerian fintech ecosystem. And for me, it became particularly important, I think, a couple weeks ago, where there was a slight issue with cards. And the number of other companies which were relying on Flutterwave's infrastructure to power their own virtual cards was actually pretty surprising. And I saw a number of them on Twitter, and also just sending me messages about how their virtual cards are down. And it reminded me of an Amazon or a Slack, where if Amazon has 2 minutes of downtime, you would know. If AWS has 2 minutes of downtime, you will know, because it will affect a lot of companies. If Slack isn't working for 30 minutes, you would know. And so I realized that Flutter is becoming that important. So talk to me about how, while you continue trying to move fast and be agile, you take into consideration the fact that you are now critical infrastructure, not just for your merchants, but also for other companies that rely on your infrastructure. And so you have to also be reliable. So move fast, but maybe don't break things. So about how you balance that.
Okay, all right, thanks. So you remember, when people ask me about Flutterwave and what we do, I always say Flutterwave is a payments infrastructure company. We help merchants pay and get paid. So beyond that, we are also an infrastructure, and like you rightly said, a lot of companies depend on us and build on that infrastructure because we have taken on that challenge. Now, the other critical piece is that payments is partnership. That's what I've found. So we rely on a number of partners. You can't do payments alone. You have to rely on people. It's indeed an ecosystem that you're working with. So for instance, when things break, right? So we know that things will break. And it was when I got to this side, I saw the amount of notifications, even from the banks, the providers, they'll tell you there will be intermittent failure. Now, in payments, a minute intermittent failure can mean that 1 million payments fail. Do you get what I mean? Because it's like a pipe. So within all of that now, because customers will see Flutterwave on the receipts, so it's easy to say it's Flutterwave. You get what I mean? But behind that payment, there's we wrote a post about it last week as well. So there are payment providers, there are acquirers, there are issuers, there are schemes. So schemes, Master, Visa, we have banks. So even the customers that have the card, they have their own banks. Do you get? So there's so many things that can happen in that chain. Now, because we know things can happen, you usually have a backup provider. You're trying to get the best provider. You're measuring your uptime. You have things internally that notify you when something is down so that you can be proactive. So there are two things that we know that we've been working on, and I'm sure a lot of people can also attest to it. We're not there yet, but one of the critical pieces, so customer is at the center of everything that we do. So because the customer is at the center of everything that we do, we know there are a number of things that we need to do. So communication, in terms of, okay, yes, we know something is down, but let us know and give us tips or tell us exactly when some of these things will be fixed. Now, those are some of the things that I know we've been doing and will continue to get better at. So like I told you at the beginning, so a lot of internal communication so that internal people know how to manage these customers, and then also external communication to the merchants and also the providers. So communication is very key. Now, also because of the partnership with with providers and having backup providers and going for the best providers as well. So when things break as well, so there's an internal network communication that happens between all of those providers. Now, there are different classes of merchants. You have the big merchant, the enterprise merchant. So today we power payments for Netflix, for Uber, for quite a number of Flywire, a number of big merchants. But we also have a retail product that's Bata. So Bata is retail. So, it's now I understand when people say retail is hard, because that's where the SMEs and a lot of, so everything for them has to be now, it has to be instant. If they're not getting it now, because of payments, there are so many things. Somebody's trying to pay for a hospital bill, somebody's trying to pay for their school fees. So the customer doesn't even want to understand that you have all of this. I came to you, I needed a service and I didn't get that. So communication in terms of how that works, if there's an issue, how your processes are able to quickly react. Are you refunding? Which is why it's very clear in terms of how you've organized yourself within the organization to react quickly to a lot of these things. So for instance, last week, even beyond what you said, last week we had an issue, a very big issue, but you can't tell customers that it's an industry issue because the provider was down. On my receipts, I just see that Flutterwave has debited me, that, and everybody comes for that. So what we've also tried to do is think about ways that as a customer, we're putting ourselves in their shoe, having empathy and saying, if I was a customer, what would I require to help me manage this better? So we came up with a tool. So it's also part of building and creating that if you have like a transaction you don't recognize, you can go to that tool, and with the tool, you're able to understand that, okay, I actually did this transaction. So you can imagine if you did a transaction on the 2nd of August and you're getting a debit on the 23rd, you're wondering, somebody took my money, but you've forgotten that maybe you paid for a ticket or you paid for something. So that tool helps you. Once you put in the parameters, it tells you, oh, then you're able to remember that you did that. And then also building comes to merchants have. So managing the merchant through giving them timelines to when it will be resolved, and then working back.
Seems like we're having a couple network issues. So, yes, I think I lost you towards the end,
Okay.
But I got most of what you said. And, it's very, I think the advice on processes and backups is important, but
yeah.
Because ultimately, even regarding your fault, and you just have to communicate.
Yeah.
So I'll pick a couple questions from the Q&A box. And for everyone who's watching, remember, if you have any questions, just put them in the Q&A box, and then I'll pick some of them. So critical metrics you use in evaluating the customer experience.
Okay, so in terms of evaluating customer experience, we look at a number of things. So there are different channels. So you have to look at all your channels. So emails, social media, because people feel like companies react faster on social media because nobody wants to see, something bad of that. But you have like metric per channel. So we have metric defined for social media, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. I think another critical thing also learned is that social media is even beyond the Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. You also have to look at Google. You have to look posts because you may not even know where all of these things are said. So there are tools today that you can use to understand where your names are mentioned, and you directly integrate it so that every time it's mentioned, somebody's looking at it and ensuring that they react faster. So metrics for each of the channels, it depends on your organization. I think depending on what you're also offering, what your products or your service are. So we've defined what the time for each of this is. We measure this every day and at the end of the week, and we're like, okay, so we don't even wait for the end of the week. So if we see that there's a lot of volume, on our chats, for instance, in customer support, we're able to reallocate people across so that, there's more focus on. So there's somebody actively monitoring where the volumes are so that you're in line with the SLAs that you have set. But you have to be able to understand all your channels and communicate those channels to the customer so that that's where they come to you to meet you.
Great, no, thanks. That's a great answer. We have a question here from Precious, who is in the Endeavor team, but we will take our question. She says, curious to know what the day-to-day of a CEO looks like. What passes your table on a daily basis, and what's the relationship like with the CEO?
Okay, so in terms of my daily, so I think Gary asked me a question at the beginning about how my role has evolved. So now, because we've recruited into a lot of most of my work is helping the organization achieve success across organization performance management at all the teams. If there's any challenge, we're able to solve that. And then as an organization, we have some big strategic projects as well that, I also have to make sure that, we to the end. So in terms of my day, so sometimes I start with a to-do list, but when we have an issue, all that to-do list just goes away because you're trying to solve all the problems. It's like, it just becomes like okay, so how do we manage all of that? We're calling the providers, calling the banks, and ensure that everything is working well. So if I give an example, like that last week, we had to talk to providers. It was the provider had an issue, like a technical glitch. But because there are so many banks that the customers, also we have to call the banks to ensure that the banks are also making sure that they provide the refund. So your day can go from, okay, today I need to work on this project, a project that will make maybe something better, a project that will make us, maybe achieve our next 3 to 5 year goals, maybe long-term goals. We've defined all of these things, how to move it forward and all of that. And just helping everyone, overcome some of the challenges. So it depends on what is happening in the day, and sometimes it's very unpredictable in terms of how the day goes. You just have to make sure that you're on top of a lot of the issues. Part of my work now is also working with the CEO to make sure that all the management team and all our leaders, we pull together the reports for our investors and all our stakeholders. In terms of my relationship with the CEO, I think I'm not sure you'll be able and thrive if you don't have a very good relationship with the CEO and a lot of the leaders. So all the leaders, you have to have a good relationship because you're in sort of it together. So have a good relationship. I respect him a lot in terms of it's a lot, and I think his background as well, because he also had his hands in a lot of startups and all of that. So the good days and the bad days, he understands a lot of the things that need to be done, and also his vision is very clear. So it makes it very easy to follow.
Yeah. Thanks. I'm just going to pick on the last thing you said and transition into the question here. So you spoke about the good days and bad days, and we have someone asking, what has been the most challenging situation you've had to address in your role?
Okay. In terms of, I think most of the challenges then was in my early days because I was so used to struggle. I love challenges, to be honest. I like to take on challenges. I see myself as a very resilient person. No matter what, I will try and make sure that things get done. I will keep at it. I learned that a lot at KPMG. You just keep at it and you just keep moving, till you achieve results. So I consider myself as that kind of person. But in my early days, there were some things, some challenges, like maybe if something breaks, that you're just like, oh, wow, and, you feel very deflated. But over time, you begin to see, like, it's not, even the challenging days, do you understand, set you up for the better days. So my very good days are days, maybe we shipped a new product, like the Flutterwave store, projects that make an impact. And like the experience I described of that insurance company at the beginning, just seeing businesses thrive and little things you can help to make something so small become so big. I think some of the things. So over time, I don't see. So I know that it's a challenge, but people will say it's simple now. Like, let's just put our foot one in front of the other. Like, it's a challenge, and then we now say, how do we solve it? So we say a lot of, so what's next? So how do we solve it? How do we align? How do we move forward? I think that's the approach, and it has really helped me a lot.
Great. No, that's a really great approach. And I think, if you are working at a startup, it feels like every day everything is going wrong,
Yeah.
and then you look back after a couple of months and you're like, wow, we've actually achieved quite a lot. There's this quote I like that says, you often overestimate what you can do in one day, but underestimate what you can do in 5 years, right? So I just like the idea of one foot in front of the other
I'm
one.
telling you, because there were some days, early days, that, and I know in my mind, I'll just be like, okay, let me just check if it's still there, let me. But the thing is, yeah, it's just with every challenge, most of the challenges we've had, when you solve them, it just sets you up, because every time you solve a problem, you're creating something fresh and something new.
Yeah, no, I like that. I like that a lot. So there's someone in the audience who worked with you on a project for a bank while you were at KPMG and can testify to how hardworking you are. But they'd like to know how you balance your work with your other obligations, and how you try to maintain work-life balance, if that is a thing that indeed you try to maintain.
Okay, so I think one of the things that COVID has done for me personally is I'm enjoying working from home, because working from home, at least you're more involved. You can see the children, you can see the kids, and then you can work around your timing. The time difference also helps, because we have offices in the US, where we have people working from the US, we have people from Kenya, South Africa. So a lot of people I work with in the US, because their day starts at 2 as well. So for meetings and all of that, the time difference also helps me, even though you have to sleep later, but it also helps. So in terms of work-life balance, before we all had to stay at home, I still have like my crew that I ensure that so we call ourselves, I won't even say the name of the group so that they don't kill me. So we have a small group. Some of them are still back in the firm, some of them have left as well. So we just meet up like on Fridays, share drinks and just relax. Before I had my kids, I used to exercise, but I've gone back to that now. So I go for a run at 6:30 in the morning. I think it's Nikki Adeyemi that taught me that, because the adrenaline, because I can be lazy at times, but she's very athletic. So I got that habit when, we're neighbors and all. So we'll go for exercise, just run or walk, power walks in the morning. So it just sort of frees you up, the adrenaline is pumping, so that you can, no matter what it is, you need to, because the thing is, when things break and things are not going well, your people are looking up to you for that energy and resilience, and you must be able to give them, even though within your heart you are crying, but you must be able to, just support the team and give them the required level of energy to go on. So that helps me a lot as well. So the jogging, the music, yeah. And then just the new friendships also that I've created at Flutterwave with GBIO and the leaders as well also help to push things through.
Yeah, no, thanks. That's a great response, and I like the the thing you brought out around, as a leader you have to be resilient, and you have to I guess be the source of energy for your team. It's something I actually learned, or rather I had being reinforced to me this week. So we have 5 minutes left, and
Okay.
I want just a very easy softball question that you can just toss back to me super quickly. So yes, talk to me about how you manage, operations across multiple departments, across multiple countries, and especially when you think of things like regulation, when you think of customers, and how the product has to be localized. There's an amount of complexity to Flutterwave that I believe not many startups in Nigeria, have gotten to that level. So talk to me a bit about how you manage that complexity across, departments, but also across countries? It's a very, very simple question.
All right, thanks. So like I told you, I'm just one of the leaders. So we have a lot of people that work on this. So the way it is when we go to a new country, we have a global head of partnerships that is responsible for that. But there are also other people. We have products. We have somebody that leads engineering because of integration. So if we have a new provider in a new country, somebody has to do the integration. Somebody has to market. Somebody has to look for our first 50 customers, our first 10 customers, our first 50 customers, our first 100 customers that love us in all of those countries. So we have like a playbook that's in terms of the things that we check off. So for instance, in South Africa, we have Peter, he leads, he's the country lead. If it's a new country, we have somebody that is doing the marketing, but a lot of the operations is still centralized. So we have a global head of operations, somebody that looks at people globally, so we have people leading each of these teams, and we empower our people. We learn to check from the sides, they escalate, we talk about it. Like I told you, it's pretty much flat, and we talk about everything, and we're able to make this very quickly. So we have an office in Kenya, we have people in Zambia, we have Tanzania, and so on Thursdays, we have a weekly check-in with everyone on the team, where we all check in as a group. We call it our town hall. And beyond this as well, the head of global people, you talk to people on a regular basis. That's people that sell as well. We come together, we think about, okay, so what's the use case for our Flutterwave for business in your country? What's the use case for barter? We do our market intelligence to understand how people will use the product, so that if there are tweaks, engineering takes that over, product marketing has to sell. So it's a lot of teamwork and intertwining of people and brains to proceed, and then we just implement. Because one of the things is that you can have it's when people actually start using the product you get, and people actually start feeling the product or using it and giving you the feedback. So implementation is also very key. I think one of the things, aha moment for me in the past 2-3 weeks has also been, as we are onboarding people virtually, you're onboarding people from, some people are even working from Ikiti, everywhere across, some people are in their parents' house, some people we're onboarding people from, our new head of finance is in New York, do you get? So we're onboarding people across, and when you say, oh, we like the culture, it just feels like, okay, so our culture is now actually something you can actually touch, so we're beginning to see some of the things that we're doing. It's a journey, and that's our goal.
Yeah.
Really.
So we have quite a few other questions. I'll take one final question because it's one I really like, and it touches on the point you just made. So it's about company culture, and how it can easily become just a slogan in the mouth of leadership, or just a couple stickers on the wall. So the person is asking, what does it really take to develop a functional culture? And, how important is it, and how long does it take to implement?
Okay, in terms of length of time, I'm not sure, because sometimes culture maybe it's very flurry. Sometimes you can't hold it, but you can begin to do things. So a lot of people say our culture for new joiners, they'll be like it's open and all of that. I think it was one of the key things on the CEO agenda, to be honest, people and customer. So people, in terms of you need people to do work, and then customer, we always assume that we always think about the customer no matter what you see. Honestly, we're thinking about the customer in everything that we do. Now, in terms of people and culture, you just have to, it's the openness. People want you to communicate, let them know, don't let anything be mysterious, because startups sometimes start from one person, 2 people, 3 people, only a number of people know about everything, So the more you communicate and tell people, remember what I said about rallying cry, everybody must understand we're simplifying payments for industry. It has to be clear what your mission and what you're about. So that communication, I think one of the things GB also started to do recently is this mini town hall. So as we grow bigger, just also talking to people in clusters what they want, and then just reporting back on the implementation of the things that are also coming out of some of those sessions. So openness, where people are living, you just have like create the environment. And yeah, so even bringing our new head of people on board too was one of the critical decisions that we had to take, and just ensure that people are at the fore and you show them that you are actually doing everything to ensure that they all achieve success, they achieve their career goals and also the company goals.
Yeah, no, I think that's a perfect place to end this. I want to say big thank you to everyone who joined and everyone who sent in a question. This has been very fun and super enlightening for me. So I've just been taking notes.
Thank you, Darren. Thank you.
Thank you for taking the time to share from your experience, and thank you to everyone who joined. I hope everyone has.
All right. Thanks everyone for joining. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Yeah, thanks. Bye.